As a lot of you know, I recently went to the Isle of Skye for a couple days of really intense hiking and sightseeing and photography. But unfortunately, during that time, it was just such a tightly packed schedule that I couldn't paint when I was there. I only did one little painting at the very end of the trip as we were packing up and getting ready to go. So I decided when I got home, I would try to capture some of the memories, write down some of the things we did, maybe some little interesting tidbits about the trip, and make this kind of visual journey or visual journal. I'm not sure what to call it, but basically just create a memory book of sorts of the trip. I decided to use my toned paper sketchbook because I don't know, I just haven't used it a lot and I feel out of practice with it, so I thought this would be a good way to motivate myself to get back into it. And instead of just painting individual scenes on each page, I am trying to be a little more creative with the layout and do these bigger scenes that span both pages and incorporate some writing into that as well. And even on some of the pages, I'm being a little bit more graphic. Like I have these sheep overlapping the circle, which shows one of the views we had. I have the map of our trip, so like where we drove on the Isle of Skye, and just trying to figure out ways to make it more interesting, I guess. If you scroll around long enough on Pinterest or something, you can find some really cool, creative travel journal ideas or examples. And that super motivated me and got me excited to try to come up with something creative for myself. I think I have a long way to go before I'm at the point where I'm happy with my designs, but it's fun and I don't know, it's like a cool way to relive the trip. So I thought it would be fun to take you on this journey with me and do one of the pages together. Before we get started, let's talk about supplies. This is my collection of materials I use in my toned paper sketchbook. I have everything from graphite to ink to colored pencils, watercolor pencils, and white acrylic pens. Everything that looks cool on toned paper. And I keep it all in a handy little pencil case so it's all together and easy to find. I don't use it as often, but I do like to have a Sharpie on hand for big, bold marks. My Pilot G-Tech C4 is a favorite. My Uniball Needle Micro is my go-to inking pen because it's waterproof. And I also keep these brush pens on hand because sometimes I like to use more expressive marks that go from really thick to really thin. So I have a large brush and a very fine pointed brush. I also like to dabble in calligraphy, so I do have a very cheap calligraphy pen that I just put a fine nib on, and this is not waterproof either. And now on to the white pens. My Uniball Signo is my favorite. It's really opaque, bright white, and it has really good consistent lines. For more bold lines, I go for my Posca acrylic pen, and I have a couple different sizes, but the 3.1 is my favorite. And then we have a couple graphite pencils in various thicknesses. I really like my Graph Gear 1000 for the 0.9mm lead, and then I have these tiny Pentel mechanical pencils with 0.5 lead. I also use this General's Charcoal White pencil, which is really great for adding soft highlights to things. I also have a small selection of watercolor pencils with the primary colors and green and brown. And I have a little water brush pen in the bag as well. I love these Polychromos pencils, and I keep a selection of colors that I think go well with landscapes and that also show up really nice on the toned paper. They're really opaque and vibrant and just wonderful to work with. Before I started the sketchbook, I did a little swatch sheet of most of my ink and graphite so I can get an idea of how dark or how light it shows up. I also keep a tiny tube of white gouache because that comes in handy for filling in bigger areas of white. And by the way, this is my Hahnemühle toned paper watercolor sketchbook. All right, let's jump in. I think it's really important to remember that this is a sketchbook. It's meant for exploring and trying new things and not obsessing about making everything perfect. And trust me, I had to constantly remind myself of that during this process. I had to remind myself that even though I'm not used to sketching people, it's okay if it looks a little crazy. It's meant to tell a story. It's meant to trigger my memory of being in this place, experiencing it, and just act as a tool to bridge the past and the present. As soon as I started to paint the sky, I felt like something was missing, especially in the bottom left corner of this page. And since that was where my poster or my sign for the fairy pools was, I decided to see if I could make it a little more bold or stand out against the page. I went back in and colored it in just a little bit with some lighter colors, but even that wasn't doing it for me. So soon you'll see how I go back and totally redo that sign. What I love about this process is that it removes the pressure of making a perfectly clean and organized sketchbook. It's much more about the memories, about capturing something special that happened, and just having fun and being creative with the layout. You were waiting for me to fall.
So were you.
Oh, I made it look easy. There's not one single way to do this, and I even use multiple approaches and techniques when I turn the page in my sketchbook. To me, the single most important thing is that in 10 years I can open this sketchbook and feel like I'm back on Skye.